A research scientist is given the task of unlocking the secrets behind a mythical creature left in his care at a secret military research installation. But what happens when, after years of research, that fascination turns into something more? We're going to talk about it in Horror and Fantasy Illustrated Plum Island from Zenescope Entertainment. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of Horror and Fantasy Illustrated Plum Island from Zenescope. Dave Franchini's story is pretty much I would say an adaptation, but a new twist on an old classic, Beauty and the Beast. But there's definitely no happy ending here. The story starts off with a brief prologue where we see a group of military soldiers surrounding and capturing a woodland monster of sorts. It's composed of wood and vines and all kinds of green matter and materials. And the creature is eventually gassed and taken away to a secret facility a little bit further along in the story. However, it comes at the cost of several soldiers' lives because this creature is strange but also incredibly deadly. The creature is brought to a facility named Plum Island. It's a secret government installation where they store strange and unusual creatures for study to find out what powers or abilities or matter that they can produce that would help mankind and, more importantly, of course, the military. The entire research team is assigned to a creature, and it's led by a gentleman named Emmanuel Burton. Some of the other soldiers and some of the higher-ups nickname him Manny, but he definitely hates that. Burton is tasked with trying to figure out what is the creature, what can it do for humanity, what abilities can it use to create weapons or do anything that would benefit its captors. And over the course of decades, we see that Burton sort of develops a bond or a kinship or a relationship to the creature, partly because after it's captured and put in this glass cage, if you will, it takes on a more feminine and shapely female form. And he recognizes after a series of events that the creature is willing to care for him, is willing to provide for him, and is willing to at least provide some respect for him because Burton treats the creature well, even though it is in captivity. One day, the inevitable happens. The higher-ups that run the Plum Island facility decide that they're going to shut it all down, ship the creature off to another location, codenamed Abby, and Burton is supposed to turn over all his research materials and just forget that he ever had any kind of relationship or connection to the creature, who is nicknamed or at least given the name of Eden. Now, Burton has the choice. He's got to shut it all down, and he hopes that he can just let it go, or the creature secretly, when they're together and alone, now is trying to convince him to let it go. Now, Burton has this difficult choice to make. He either has to follow his orders, which could get him in a lot of trouble, maybe even arrested, tried, and possibly even executed for treason, or help the creature who he's now developed a bond with. Some would even call it love. And he makes the choice. And as you can imagine, the choice gets a lot of people killed. But it doesn't end where you think it ends. So now Burton has to live with the consequences of a choice that he made out of love. But sometimes the choices we make are not always the right ones. The story is a lot longer than that, but most of what fills in the in-between is action. Some of it is violent and in particular kind of gruesome and gory and bloody. But that's the meat of the issue. Now, so let's talk about the character aspects and the character development. Franchini sort of digs deep into Burton as a mild-mannered, lonely scientist. I wouldn't call him necessarily a loser, but his personality is very meek. He's very not assertive. And in a way, he's almost cowardly to the point of being slightly pathetic. But at the same time, when he's forced into a scenario where he has to do the right thing, he does step up. So there's this sort of sympathy there that Franchini kind of bestows upon Burton as somebody who may have not always done the right thing, or was lulled into accepting a fantasy that didn't really exist, if that makes sense. But at the same time, you empathize with his position and the circumstances he finds himself in. And when he does step up to make the right choices, you can kind of feel that he is making them for the right reasons, and you can support him in that aspect. Let's move over to the artwork. Usually when you see more than one penciler and inker on a comic, when they're not separated out as one is pencils and one is inks, that's usually a little bit of a yellow flag, at least, if not a red flag, because you can expect that the art style is going to shift or change from one scene to another, or from one act of the comic to another. Here, you do see it, but it's slight. It's not noticeable at all, which is a good thing. So Otero and Xavier complement each other pretty well. This comic has a lot of energy, has a lot of dramatic visuals. The character acting is on point. The monster designs look cool, and the deaths are gruesome and bloody and even pretty gory in some spots, surprisingly so. So when you see multiple artists and they can work well together and the story flows pretty well, you're in good shape. Plus, Passiorati does a great job with the colors, because this is a very green book, given the nature of the monster. So there's lots of greens, lots of earth tones, but it doesn't feel drab or dull, which is a positive. Let's move over to pacing and structure. So this is a double-sized issue. Actually, it's a little bit greater than a double-sized issue, but Franchini keeps the narrative tight, smooth, engaging. The scenes transition well, and it reads surprisingly quick for, I believe it's 56-page comic, which is surprising. I mean, usually you'd think you'd be bogged down, but no, uses all the page spaces well. There's not a lot of exposition. You kind of get where the story is coming from, both from the words and the art, which means that the script and the art team are working well together, which is good. And the conclusion is pretty satisfying. If we're going to nitpick a little bit, there are one or two spots where information could have been developed more. For example, they say that the creature is going to be transferred to this facility called Abbey. I have no idea what Abbey is or what it is. Or is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is moving to Abbey going to mean problems for the creature or not? Don't know. They just say Abbey like it's supposed to mean something. So we sort of get that little aspect in there that could have used a little bit more development. Plus, you have some of the characters in there which are basically the human jerks of the story. The scientists higher ups who are threatening to shut the whole thing down. You get that they're jerks, and you get at least one of them doesn't like him at all, but you don't really know why. Like there's some past relationship where they're at odds with each other, and so you're missing little pieces of information. In the overall context of the story, doesn't make a big difference, but there's like little pieces where maybe some more character development and world building would have been helpful. Thematically, the story really leans heavily on the idea of love transcends all. If you're looking for, we mentioned it earlier, you're looking for similar stories as Beauty and the Beast with more violence. Certainly, if you're looking for a more recent example, it would be the 2017 film The Shape of Water. Actually, that film has a lot of similarity to what's going on here. Not too much where it feels like it's a direct copy, but there are definitely some parallels where you can see the ideas are paralleling each other, or at least inspired by each other. However, in this one, this particular comic, there is no happy ending. Final thoughts. What do we think about horror and fantasy illustrated Plum Island from Zenescope? You get an interesting, or at least a very unique love story that turns into a tragedy with lots of drama. You get some gruesome deaths, lots of action, and some heartbreak. Franchini's script gets all the right notes, gets all the basic things that you're looking for in there, and at a really solid pace with lots of good emotional beats, which is surprising for how quickly it reads with a comic of this size, since it's double size and you're paying for it if you're looking at the cover price. And so all the strengths and all the big beats are there, and it reads very well, very smoothly. And the art team's visuals are surprisingly good, considering that there's a handoff between the two artists, and you can see it, but it's not too bad. Therefore, we're going to give Horror and Fantasy Illustrated Plum Island from Zenescope an 8.8 out of 10. If you like sort of tragic love stories with monsters and whatnot, give us a thumbs up. Let us know what you think. If you think this concept of Beauty and the Beast with a more modern twist is not your cup of tea, leave us a comment. Let us know. I'd like to hear your opinion about that. Otherwise, please stay tuned through the outro for the next review.